Geraldine by Ken Compton. Lights Out was at 9:30 p.m., and 218 was the last room Barbara had to inspect. She peered inside, where the moonlit window illuminated a frail man resting against an angled Tempur-Pedic in an otherwise dark, somber space. There was something familiar about him. His silver hair was disheveled, his eyes half closed, and his brown skin was dotted with moles. Breathing tubes rested at his nostrils, allowing him to speak freely. The man turned and met her interest. Her father had had the same sunken face. "I miss Geraldine," he said. "Come again, sir?" The man looked away. "I'll send a care team member to assist you," she said before departing. Barbara Tobel, administrator, had been newly inscribed on the doorplate of the large office at the end of the hall. The Safe Haven Hospice logo greeted her from the computer screen, one seated behind the cherry wood desk. Curiosity inspired a few keystrokes that brightened the monitor with a patient's list. Melvin Henry Thomas resided in 218, age 81, stage 4 emphysema, one grandson in the Marines overseas, no other known relatives, no mind-fogging side effects from treatment, no one named Geraldine. Oh well. Barbara messaged the care assistant and logged off. The burgundy executive chair cooled her back as she reclined, but Mr. Thomas's resemblance to her father disrupted objectivity. "I need to see ya, Barbs," he said some Tuesday morning not long ago. "I can't today, Papa. It's a 4-hour drive. I'll make some time this weekend and bring you those chocolates you love from Crown Candy." "I don't need chocolate. I need to see my only daughter." She laughed it off and replied, "I'll see you this weekend." He died of a heart attack 2 days later. The permeating stink of sickly bodies greeted her upon arriving at Safe Haven early the next day. A gulp of brew broke the stench as she walked towards the stairwell, avoiding the wait for the elevator. On the second floor, room 218 was to the left where not much had changed from the night before. "Good morning, Mr. Thomas." She stepped inside and set her coffee down. "Is there anything one of the staff or I can do for you?" The familiar face greeted her. "I miss Geraldine," he said. Barbara proceeded to the nurse's station, where a young care attendant popped gum while reading the latest People magazine. Her name tag displayed Shelley. "Excuse me, but can you tell me about Mr. Melvin Thomas in 218? He keeps mentioning the name Geraldine." Without looking up, Shelley blew a bubble and spoke. "He says that every day. I don't think nobody knows who she is for real." "Has anyone taken an interest to find out?" "Miss Tobel," she said and glanced up. "We have over 30 people dying here, and they be all mumbling something. I mean, it could be some form of dementia, I don't know. But we don't have the time to chase every whisper." In the eye contact that lingered, her father's last wish resonated. "I need to see my only daughter." Barbara noted the girl's name tag. "Thank you, Shelley, for letting me know what staff changes are needed here," she thought. Once in her office, she scrutinized every corner in the database for Mr. Thomas. General facts, nutrition restrictions, and a medical prognosis. The doctors expected less than a month for him to live. 2 letters had been scanned into the computer system. The first was from his grandson, with handwritten details of a Marine's life in Syria and an apology for abandoning his grandfather in a hospice. The scribbles aggravated her short-sighted eyes, so she printed the second letter, a thank you note written by someone who had purchased the house Mr. Thomas's grandson had sold them to. Could this be Geraldine? But the letter was signed by Miss Caroline Hart. Curses. Barbara recycled the note and spent the next hour completing administrative duties that included writing a summary from the previous night's inspection and paying debts to Safe Haven's creditors. After filling the recycling bin with stubs and letterheads, she carried it to the mailroom shredder. The small space contained other baskets filled with documents and an overrun tray next to the scanner. What's the point in having a shred and recycle setup if nobody will take time to do it? She slammed the bin onto the adjacent counter and snatched a handful of papers from the tray. The shredder rumbled as angrily as she felt, each paper more upsetting than the last one, until something written on a piece of scrap caught her attention. Hope replaced anger as she stood fixated with the discovery. A Google search on the computer in her office revealed a picture of Geraldine. Barbara dialed the phone number listed and spent nearly an hour getting acquainted with a long-winded but delightful woman. They agreed that a visit would be nice for Mr. Thomas. With authorization from the primary care physician, she planned for the day trip before delivering the news. Barbara entered, and before he uttered the phrase, she said, "Mr. Thomas, if you're up to it, I'll take you to see Geraldine." Wide eyes and a beaming smile contrasted his usual sadness. Accompanied by a nurse to assist with oxygen, Barbara drove the hospice van 5 miles over the speed limit 2 hours later. Mr. Thomas remained silent for nearly the entire ride, but judging from his shaking knees, grew anxious the closer they drew toward their destination. At the last turn, tears streamed his face. They exited the van, where a 2-story burnt clay brick home stood before them. Barbara had found an envelope in the mailroom that showed them the return address. "The new owner is a wonderful lady named Caroline Hart," said Barbara. "Your grandson told her about you during the short sale of the property, and she can't wait to thank you in person for her lovely new home." They were standing in front of 2148 Geraldine Drive. Mr. Thomas hesitated as if trying to make the moment last. "I bought this house 51 years ago," he said. "I refurbished it after I moved in. And again, after the fire in '84, I struggled to keep it when I was out of work." He wiped his face with a handkerchief from the outer breast pocket of his dark blue blazer. "Everything happened so fast after I got sick, and I never had a chance to say goodbye to this place that is so much a part of me. Thank you." "No, Mr. Thomas. Thank you." Tears fell despite her effort to keep from crying as they embraced. Barbara held his delicate arm, escorted him to the front door, and felt as though her father smiled upon her from heaven. And as always, please be sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more awesome stories. The Offering by Ken Compton. It was 2 a.m. on a quiet Sunday morning when Alma found herself standing in the hallway, trembling with a mixture of disbelief and heartache. Her 80-year-old frame felt frail under the weight of betrayal, her mind reeling with the conversation she had overheard just moments ago. Through the closed door of her daughter Evelyn's room, Alma had caught snippets of a conversation that shattered her trust. Evelyn's voice had carried clear despite her attempts to keep it hushed. "It's $98,526, Evelyn had stated matter-of-factly. Alma's grip tightened on the fabric of her nightgown as she strained to hear more, the words sinking like stones into her heart. "How much?" Curtis, Evelyn's husband, had responded eagerly. "You heard me. I saw her bank statement. Keep your voice down. Mama's hearing is good for an old lady." Evelyn's frustration was palpable. Alma pressed her ear closer to the door, her chest tight with a mix of hurt and anger. "When can we get our hands on that money?" Curtis asked, his voice betraying a hint of greed. "Soon," replied Evelyn with determination. "I told her that we were gonna look after things since she's getting older and can't do for herself like she used to. If I can convince her to let us move into the house, then I can talk her into putting my name on that account. I'll bring it up again tomorrow on the way home from church." "Praise the Lord," Curtis chimed in sarcastically. "I don't see how you can stand that old Bible-toting woman. We've only been here 2 weeks and I'm going crazy listening to her quote scriptures." "It's all for the money," Evelyn retorted coldly. "I wouldn't be here otherwise. Far as I'm concerned, she owes me for all those years I spent doing everything just right to please God. That money should be mine." Alma's eyes filled with tears as she absorbed the harsh reality of her daughter's words. The pain of betrayal cut deep, leaving her feeling vulnerable and deceived. Maybe they'll leave if I offer them half of the money, Alma thought desperately, her mind racing with ideas to salvage the situation. How much money does she spend every month? Curtis inquired, his voice now tinged with anticipation. About $800 a month, but with her social security and pension, she's doing well, not to mention the money from Daddy's insurance policy. Almost $100,000 just waiting to be spent. Curtis mused. I wish I could see the look on her face when she sees that her nest egg is gone. You mean scrambled up, Evelyn added, and they both burst into laughter. The sound of their mockery pierced Alma's heart like a knife. She pressed a hand to her chest, tears streaming down her cheeks. The pain of betrayal was almost unbearable. In that moment, Alma made a silent vow to herself. They can have the money. If that's what it takes for them to leave my house and my life, so be it. Alma retreated to her bedroom, her heart heavy with sorrow. She knelt beside her bed and prayed fervently for guidance and strength. After what seemed like an eternity of tearful supplication, a sense of peace washed over her. In that moment of communion with God, Alma found clarity. The next morning, Alma woke up with a sense of purpose. She dressed in her best attire, a royal blue dress, pearl jewelry, and a white hat, preparing herself for church. The morning air felt crisp and rejuvenating as she made her way to the congregation. Inside the church, Alma found solace in the familiar hymns and prayers. The organ music swelled around her, filling her with a sense of peace and belonging. She participated in the service with renewed faith, her heart lighter than it had been in days. When the time came for the offering, Alma reached into her purse and placed a generous $20 bill in the collection tray. She felt a sense of liberation with each passing moment, knowing that she was following the path that God had set before her. After the service, Alma approached the pastor for a moment of needed fellowship while Evelyn went to the car. On the way home, Evelyn began to broach the subject of the bank account once more, but Alma gently interrupted her. I've made up my mind, Evelyn, Alma said calmly. I want you to have access to my finances. Evelyn blinked in surprise, momentarily taken aback by Alma's change in demeanor. Are you sure, Mama? Alma smiled serenely, a weight lifted from her shoulders. Yes, sweetie. Evelyn's eyes filled with greedy satisfaction. Thank you, Mama. I promise I'll take good care of everything. Let's go to the bank tomorrow morning and get everything sorted. Let's go in the afternoon. I'd like to catch up on some rest. As they drove home, Alma couldn't help but smile to herself. She knew, deep down, that she had made the right decision. Money was just money, but her faith was priceless. Despite Evelyn and Curtis's betrayal, Alma had found her own way to handle the problem, with grace and generosity. The anticipation of Evelyn's reaction upon realizing all the money had been donated to the church brought a profound sense of peace that settled over her soul. The pastor would be at the bank in the morning to cash in the check she had written out. In her heart, Alma whispered a silent prayer of gratitude. Praise the Lord. And as always, please be sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more awesome stories.